Welcome into the Sports Objective. As we're here tonight, we have two great guests. We'll have Curtis Thieman coming on for Port City Films. We're talking about East Carolina and obviously the entrance video that he is obviously a graduate of that. And Jonathan Medford, they both work really hard down in Wilmington with their business and have helped us out with the entrance video. We'll have them in the second half hour. First off, though, we have from The Athletic, one of my favorite websites, theathletic.com, Nicole Auerbach. Talking about COVID-19 in sports and perfect timing. Nicole, we were talking to you. First of all, welcome into the show. How are you?
Thanks. Well, I'm hanging in there. It's just, each day feels very similar to the last one still.
Yeah, we have the usual suspects, Kyle from LaGrange Barber, obviously, and Bubba Rosenbaum. Wanted to have you on. The Athletic is awesome. If you haven't gotten The Athletic, what's wrong with you? Get it, theathletic.com. It is great. It's like having sports journalism back in the day with the great work like writers like Nicole that have beat writers and different ones about different things. Nicole, you had an excellent article the other day about COVID-19. That's why we invited you on about that in sports. And lo and behold, about an hour before you come on the air with us, we got a breaking news from our athletic department locally to East Carolina that they're suspending all the operations right now because we had 27 positives out of all the people they tested. Only 5 have recovered. And so they decided to halt things for right now to see how things go. And I was like, man, that's perfect timing with Nicole. It's like this story just continues to build upon itself. It's a never ending story, I guess, for those of you that are beat writers, but not the kind of story we want right now, right, Nicole, if you're in the world of sports?
Yeah. I mean, and you work at a sports outlet, right? Like, we all get into this because we want to see the games and we want to see things actually play out. And even, 3-4 weeks ago, we felt like it was a totally different world. And there was a lot of optimism and confidence that college football was going to start on time. There were, people were talking about capacity, right? They were saying, oh, can we get 10%, 25%, 50%? It was very, very different. And then obviously it drastically changed, as we started getting data about all these outbreaks, which obviously are, throughout a lot of college football hotbeds.
Yeah. In the South, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, numbers all going up every day. I know a lot of people have started, a lot of states have started mandating masks, and some people are taking it seriouser than others. Doctor friend of mine, Dr. John Breams, that if we can get 80% compliance of people in America wearing masks, that we could nip this thing in the bud in about 6 weeks.
Would be great. That would be great. I wish people realized this back in March, but I guess, late is better than never. And, it's been interesting because now you're starting to see those mask PSAs in like the SEC, right? We're talking about a lot of those states where there's a lot of outbreaks are in the SEC. And I think that it's been interesting because really in the last 3 days, publicly, the leaders in the SEC have finally acknowledged that this is a real threat to having a fall college football season, which some of their peers were more ready to go there and to talk about that sooner than they were.
What do you make of the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the MAC announcing they're going to go conference only? Do you think what do you think the point of that is? I mean, your first reaction, at least initially to me, is, well, it reduces travel, but it doesn't really. I mean, it's a long damn way from Nebraska to New Jersey. When you're talking about the Big Ten, is it to make it just more manageable, where you got fewer games to play and more opportunities to reschedule things if need be, because of maybe a team can't play because their entire quarterback room's got COVID?
Yeah, so it's not really about travel at all, and I do think that was something that confused a lot of people as well. Because if you're thinking about if a Big Ten MAC game is drivable, what's the difference here, right? Or isn't that better than a flight? But really, the two things that I keep coming back to about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 making that decision is, one is the minimum standard of testing. They don't have to call their opponents all the time and see exactly what they're doing. They don't have to worry if their opponent can't afford it. Obviously everyone wants to have the same level of testing. They want to do it as frequent as possible, but it's very expensive. So instead of worrying that maybe your opponent isn't testing to the standard that you are, and that there maybe is an undetected outbreak on that roster, and then you're going to mix the two teams and put your own players at risk, you get rid of that you just don't have that as a potential issue. And then also it is about that flexibility from a scheduling standpoint, because these are the same people who are on meetings and calls all the time. There's more flexibility if you do, like you mentioned, you get rid of a couple of games, so you have 10 games over 13 weeks. Buys in some time if you want to start a little bit later, or if you have outbreaks and you need to take a pause in the middle of the season. Plus, it's just easier to reschedule and move things around when you get rid of those variables that are outside of your conference, right? Everyone's just on the same page. Your broadcast partners, everything is just easier when it's in-house. And so I think that's really where this is, more so even than the minimum standard of testing, and definitely more so than geography. It's just about the ease of flexibility, because you're assuming that you're going to need that it potentially on the front end of the season, the middle end of the season, back end of the season, like all of that. It's just a lot easier to move those pieces around if they're all within one league.
Yeah, and one thing I'm wondering about, if we are able to play this fall, and that's a big if, you got 3 conferences so far, 2 Power 5, 1 Group of 5, making the decision to go conference only. What if the other, what if the SEC, ACC, Big 12, American, Mountain West decide not, or 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4 decide not to do conference only? If we get to the point where we play a whole season and we have a traditional bowl season and playoff, it's going to have to be some things looked at that people normally don't have to think about in terms of the amount of wins for bowl eligibility and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and listen, if we get to that point where we're arguing, right, and that someone played 3 more games than somebody else and who's deserving, that's great. That's a great problem to have, right, at this point, because the season itself is in doubt. So I would gladly welcome those arguments, and I think everyone would be thrilled with that. I mean, I've talked to Bill Hancock, the executive director of the College Football Playoff, about, what do you do if people do have totally different resumes, very different than what we're used to talking about. We're used to talking about, like, okay, this team made their conference championship game, so they played 13 games. That one only played 12. Like, that's the type of difference we're used to talking about. We're not used to saying, like, well, this team only played 8 games and this team played 5, right? So he was saying that, that they would be flexible. They would react to, whatever, the Power 5, the FBS leagues need them to do, but also just in general that they might implement a minimum standard of games played to get consideration for like a New Year's Six Bowl, a college football playoff berth, like at that level. But I do think that, we've already seen some waivers affected for like bowl eligibility, that you could count 2 FCS opponents towards that. So I think in terms of other elements of a postseason, if we're to get to that point, I think those things will be determined. But that's really all anyone can do at this point, because even starting the season is in question. So the questions about the end of the season, I think you could work those out mid-season if you needed to.
Yeah, I want to make another just an interesting thought and point about the scheduling thing. Being an East Carolina guy and keeping up with the American Conference, it could be interesting. You could have, let's say, the American and the Mountain West decide to go forward with non-conference games, and you got a UCF, for example, going undefeated again, and they have a 13-0 season counting the conference championship game, and nobody else has come close to playing 13 games. Maybe this would be their opportunity to finally make a playoff.
Right. Yeah, you could. That is a potential scenario. What also would be interesting would be, I think everyone would just kind of assume, and this was actually a question in my colleague Chris Vanini, who does a great job covering the Group 5, in his mailbag, but it was about, like, is the American champ just going to be the team that would get that New Year's Six slot? Like what would have to happen in a weird season for someone else to be assumed, right? If you have less data points to compare teams. So it might have to be like the reverse of what you're describing. Like, let's say the Mountain West plays, a longer season, Boise State's undefeated, wins more games than you see, right? Like that type of thing could absolutely come into play. And again, if we're having these arguments in November, December, like, that's great. I would be thrilled. That would be.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
That very thing, Nicole, as far as if you only have conference only across the board, would that mean, we were talking this last night, I believe, 4 conference? I mean, 4 wins in your conference, 4 out of the 8 games to make a bowl?
You're assuming you're playing an 8-game conference schedule, Dave, but I
think they would adjust. They would figure out those thresholds. Because because again, like we're talking about bowl season, which would be during the winter, which we've been told is not going to be great. It's going to coincide with a flu season. So again, there may not even even if there is, we get to that point in the season, it may be possible that not every bowl game is operating, and hosting a game too. So I think all of that stuff will be worked out. I think that's why you've seen things on the front end, like the waiver that would allow you to count 2 FCS opponents towards bowl eligibility, because you're trying to do a little adjustments on the front end. And then kind of, again, if you need to make it 5 wins instead of 6 or 4, whatever, you can do that later. Because these things are, the NCAA has a lot of bureaucracy, but they can get this stuff done, over that period of time if they need to.
Nicole, what are you hearing in terms of schools playing without any fans? I know the city of Philadelphia, I read online, I need to check my source and make sure this is accurate, but I read online earlier that the city of Philadelphia has banned any large gatherings until 2021. So therefore, Temple, another American Conference team, that means in theory that they wouldn't be able to have any fans at their games. Do you think that a school would have football with absolutely no fans?
I do. Yeah. I think, if you can, these are conversations we've had for a few months now, right? And the thinking is, especially at the FBS level, that there's a lot of money coming in from these media rights deals. And yeah, it would suck not to have that ticket revenue coming in, and that matters at a lot of schools. But I do think, you need to broadcast the games. That's where the majority of the money is coming from. And so people would play in front of an empty stadium. I think there's an optics problem if you're saying it's not safe enough to bring fans, but it's safe enough for your college students to play on the field. And obviously the pushback to that is the amount of the crowd size, the protection, the equipment, all of those other things. But that's something to consider as well. I think that the conversation around crowds and fans has really just kind of gone away. No one's brought that up in a conversation to me in 3 weeks, because now it's on the uncertainty of, can you continue practicing? Can you have games? So I think people would take it, if you can get to that point, even if you can't have fans. But that actually is one of the talking points a little bit, in the early conversations about, if you postpone the fall season to spring, is, you're hoping that society at large is in a better place, that we've contained the virus more, that things like the restrictions on on the size of gatherings, restrictions on traveling, crossing states and quarantining and social distancing, that the hope is that if you contain the virus more, you have less of those restrictions. And then maybe you could have, if you have spring football, maybe you can play that in front of fans.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, talking about spring football, news coming out today, vaccine trials successful here in the States and supposed to go to production hopefully by the end of summer, and hoping to have, they claim they're going to try to have 300 million vaccines ready by early next year. So if that keeps moving forward, that'd be really good. And then a couple other things. You're talking about fans, no fans. Bristol this weekend, NASCAR.
Yeah.
It's planning on having 30,000 fans there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. That'll be a telltale sign for states that do allow it, like Tennessee. Can you have 30,000 at Rocky Top? And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm throwing a lot of things at you, you talk about the FBS level playing games with no fans because of TV contract revenue. Yeah, and that's true for the Power Five, and even maybe for the American. Our television contract's worth around $7 million per team now. But you take somebody like the Sun Belt, who's FBS, their money is minuscule. I don't know.
$100,000.
Yeah, it's a few $100,000. I don't know how you justify it for them.
Yeah. So a couple of points. So on this subject of crowds and things, again, I think that a lot of the college leaders had hoped that pro sports would be a little bit further along, because they have said they really wanted to see how it worked and learn from protocols and things. So I do think anything that is tested, like crowds at a NASCAR event, people will be tracking that and seeing how it works. And then obviously what happens in that area in terms of, positive cases, positive test results and cases afterwards. So I think that's absolutely something that, will be on people's radars. And then, the impact to different leagues, even within, the same category, like an FBS league, even within the group of 5, as you guys know, there's differences. And, that's why people, the MAC has a lot of state schools that, are expecting to not get that much from the state appropriations, right? So there's going to be very different impact. I apologize. My dog is whining in the background.
That's okay. We love dogs.
He's got strong opinions about this stuff. But, I think that it is going to impact teams, schools, and leagues very differently, depending on, again, what a season looks like, when it is, how many games they get in, if they can have fans. And again, like to your point about media rights, and what that means. So, when you think about potentially the need to make cuts and cut sports and staff and scholarships and things, those really hard decisions that could happen if you don't have a fall season, it's going to look different at different levels and different individual campuses.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to say today, your best guess from everybody you're talking to, do you think it's more likely we do play at some point in the fall, or if we're going to be playing football in the spring?
It's a hard question to answer because there are still people in the camp of, see if you can delay a month, see if you can, or shorten a season, right? And try to look at those types of flexibility. But I do think more and more people are coming around on the idea of buying yourself more time, buying yourself 6 months to figure this out. And again, hope that maybe there's a vaccine, but even if there's not a vaccine, that it's contained more, that you don't have these outbreaks that are happening. And then thinking about adding thousands of regular college students to these environments, right? So just that society would have a better control of what's going on around sports. So I think that people are coming around on that. Obviously, the risk is that, we haven't improved and you can't have a spring season and then you're out of time, right? And you have nothing for an academic year. You have no college football. So that would be a concern to a lot of people. But I think that you are seeing growing support for people to he is just like really whining. But you are seeing growing support for spring and at least trying it, because again, the worst thing that could happen is no sports, no college football in the entire academic year. And then I think another bad outcome here is if you start a football season in the fall and have to shut it down. I think that's a bad outcome as well. Also, I'm going to feed him really quick. Hold on.
Okay. How about it? Okay. Pete is hungry, Dave.
Feed Jake. Feed Jake. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah, you fed him that fast? You're good.
Give him a treat. That's what he wants. He just wants a treat.
I was gonna talk about, if you push it back to the spring, 2 things on that. One, the worst thing, like you said, then we can't play it in the spring if things ain't got better. Let me tell you something. If things ain't got better by the spring, football is going to be the least of our worries, because we've got a lot of sick people and a lot of death.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you push it back to the spring and you play just a conference schedule, what do you do about the following year, 21? Because let's say we start the last week of February, end at the end of April. So then you got May, June, July, boom, it's August. Do you then push the 21 season back till October and start it late?
Well, I think that people will work through that stuff. I don't think anyone's figured that out yet. I mean, I think you would assume that the spring season would not be nearly as long as a regular season, right. Because and the wear and tear, there's a lot of, you'd be consulting with a lot of trainers and health and safety experts about playing 2 seasons in 1 calendar year. And yeah, you could go shorter and you could start later in the fall as well. I mean, that's another reason why the spring is a last resort, because it would impact the 2021 season as well. But again, if your other alternative is to not have it at all, you're going to try to play it. But those are issues, as well as, the Clemsons and Ohio States of the world, anticipating losing their top talent who is draft eligible. They're not going to play in the spring either. So those are the 2 main, topics that keep coming up about a spring season. But again, I think that, you're not going to, if you make a decision on fall sports to postpone or cancel, I don't see, I mean, it could happen, but it would be hard to say that and not say we're going to try for the spring and keep that hope alive.
I agree. And then another thing about that is, if you can't play football in September, let's say you push it back. Let's say initially we say conference only across the board, and we're going to start this thing at the end of September. That's going to be the goal. And then we can't. And so you say we're going to push it back to the spring. Well, chances are if you can't play football at the end of September, you can't play basketball inside a arena in November. So then do you start basketball in April? You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think they need to play a basketball season and they need to have an NCAA tournament. I think that you could start that in January. You could start that later too, but I don't think that you're going to make it so that it wouldn't overlap with football. If you have to have them overlap, you'd have them overlap.
Yeah.
And they overlap anyway a little bit.
Nicole, as we wrap this up, I know on Monday you released an article on talking about why a national standard for safety guidelines doesn't exist, and you were told by the NCAA 2 weeks ago that they have new guidelines that they'll put out soon that would serve as, quote, best practices. So without giving away that entire article, because I know you don't want to do that, go ahead and give us the Cliff Notes version and the gist.
Yeah, so that's been one thing that they have been under attack for, is that this is a global pandemic and they haven't had, here's how it works, here's the standard, and it's been up to campuses and conferences to make those decisions. And I think that he is just really. Go get your toy. So the issue is that there's liability concerns, obviously, and especially with a new contagious virus that people are still learning about. But also, it's different in different places. So that's one of the justifications of having that flexibility and not having a strict standard. But we are waiting, and it could be at some point this week to get those next guidelines. They're going to be kind of like best practices. It will have ideas of, the frequency of testing that would be required for competitions, recommendations about wearing masks for certain activities and things of that nature. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know exactly what's on it, but it's going to be pretty comprehensive. And again, the closest thing to best practices they have. It's not going to be, again, the NCAA can't require this type of thing, but these would be guidelines, and you would think a lot of the Power 5 and FBS and people would adopt it.
And Nicole, I want to tell everybody, make sure they get the Athletic, because I've had it. As a matter of fact, your colleague who you mentioned earlier, Chris Vanini, he came on our show a couple years ago. Because he came on the show, I bought the Athletic. I gave it a try. I've been a huge fan. This is your second appearance with us. You've come on before. We have a friend of ours, David Glenn, this obviously a columnist for as far as college basketball, but tell folks how they can get the Athletic. It's a great deal. I'm trying to get my colleagues, Kyle and Bubba, to come on board with me, theathletic.com. Only $40 a year, guys. Come on. We can.
Yeah. So you just go to theathletic.com, or you can, on any of my articles on Twitter, which it's Nicole Auerbach, Auerbach. You can go through any of those, and we have promo codes all the time. I know there's one, at least if it's just theathletic.com, Protect the Rock /Protect the Rock. It was tied to our Clemson podcast. That should be 40% off. But we have deals all the time, and you get everything. You get local, you get national, all sports, UK, soccer, all of that for one subscription. So thanks for having me, guys. This was fun. I do hope that we are doing this again in December and arguing about who, should make the playoff.
Absolutely. What kind of dog do you have?
He's Bichon Yorkie, and his name is Red Auerbach. So he, he does have a sports background if he's crashing a sports show. So
no doubt about it. Nice. Well, thank you, Nicole. Enjoy your work. Enjoy the Athletic, and hopefully we can talk to you soon about sports and not COVID.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Have a good night. All right. That's Nicole Auerbach again with the Athletic, and one of my favorite people in all of Pirate Nation, obviously, that's done fantastic work in Wilmy Woods. Some people say Port City, obviously, hence the name Port City Films. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy, our hero for the entrance video. Hopefully we can see an entrance video for 2020 or 21, whenever the season's going to be. Curtis Thieman, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
All right. I just have a question. Is there any way we can get Kyle in one of your films? I mean, he's a great actor. What do you think about Kyle?
We can. I'm
his agent, so I get a cut of everything he does.
We've got a little bit of, I don't know what the cut's going to look like, but we've got a little bit of a 5-year plan. I don't know how COVID's going to affect it, but we're hoping to shoot some scenes with some more actors involved. That's all I'm going to say right now. And I'll definitely let you guys know when they come up, because we might need some bodies in the background.
Yeah,
Right,
how is that working with preparing a film an entrance video for the 20 season, not knowing if you're going to have a season, and with social distancing and all, how hard is it to shoot? Does it change where you can film, how you can film, when you can film?
I mean, it definitely does. It definitely factored into our plan for this year. We kind of are approaching it like a scaled down version that we would be able to roll out in 2021 if we had to. So we're keeping that in mind. Obviously there's so much up in the air. It's hard to tell what's gonna come down in the next couple weeks. I'm hoping that they can salvage something, even if for some reason they played with just the players and didn't have any fans in the stands. I'd still want to roll out a video that we could send out to the fans. But yeah, I mean, we'll learn a lot over the next couple weeks. Our approach was a little bit different. We had to figure out a way to do it without obviously a big shoot, a big crew. We had a crew of 4 people on this shoot, and then we had 3 players. So we're trying to figure out how to bring in some. The challenge we have is there's a balance of keeping kind of the base that we built as far as the styles and the some of the footage and the story, but also refreshing it, right? So a lot of people want to see a new thing every year. And a lot of people say, hey, that works. We love it. That's what we want. So there's a balance there. As a fan, I want to see a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new. I don't ever want to just rinse and repeat. I want to try to keep it fresh. With that balance, you're going to frustrate some fans. You're going to, you're going to make some people happy. But yeah, so essentially what we're doing is kind of a refreshing. So we've got some new footage that we actually never released before, both from our first year and last year, that we're going to try to incorporate. And then we shot a little bit of footage. Some people may have seen some social media posts that we were at ECU. We were shooting with the limited crew. We got some nice stuff there. So we've got some ideas on how to change up the music, how to kind of do the same thing but different. But yeah,
I got an idea for you, Curtis. All right. Now picture.
I got a seatbelt on.
All right.
All right. You take these badass football players, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put this music that goes whoa, 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 and then you have them dance, play air guitar for no apparent reason.
What if we had it just a little out of sync?
Yeah, it's a little out of sync. Exactly.
They're chanting at kind of the wrong time.
Yes. That's it.
I've never seen anything like that, so I feel like that might work.
Great. So, Curtis, as far as I know with times, let's talk about for you personally. I know with COVID-19, it's been very difficult with obviously that, and then in the previous times we've had different kind of stuff with not the incentives. I think some of the incentives are back, I guess, in North Carolina. Can you talk a little bit? I know that's maybe a little bit inside baseball for folks, but can you explain a little bit of that about the incentives as far as tax incentives and different things for North Carolina? I'm hoping that I am so sick and tired of watching stuff on television here that jingle of made in Georgia. I'm sick and tired of hearing that. I want it to be made in North Carolina.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard to see it a lot of times. I remember getting texts because I've got a lot of friends at the studio. I got a lot of friends in all the inner circles. So I get texts when people like Spielberg scout, when they scout for things like Stranger Things that filmed in Atlanta. There's so many projects that we've missed out on. For political reasons, essentially our film incentives went away. And other states capitalized on it because they saw how much money that the film industry brings in. It's tough because on the surface, in the perfect world, I'd be against incentives as well. But that's what a lot of states and a lot of industry are built on. So when you see how it works, when you see what a film does when it comes into a community and how it just dumps money throughout the community from, every little mom and pop store, every hotel, every restaurant. You hear about movies like Iron Man 3 and how they spent $100 and whatever million. Downey Jr. and the actors only get so much of that. A lot of that money is just dumped into the community. So that's why states offer such high incentives, is because that money is just distributed throughout the community, and a lot of people, do well with that. So I hate that they went from X incentive, 25%, and whatever the structure was, to 0, when they could have just maybe scaled it down or found some middle ground. If you didn't see that as working, find some middle ground where you think it does work for the state and for the taxpayers. I do understand the other side of that argument, but at what point does it make sense? For example, I had a friend on social media who was like, I'm against incentives under no circumstances should you ever have an incentive. I said, okay, George. Oops, said his name. Anyway, okay, George. I said, what if this company said they'd move into your city, spend $10 million, and all you had to do was give them $1? As a politician, would you make that deal? And he was like, well, I was like, okay. So we're accepting that incentives make sense on some level. You just have to find that balance. So I hate that we had a healthy film industry for 20 plus years, and all of a sudden it just went away overnight because of the incentive game. It has come back for the last 3 years. We've seen a nice uptick. We've seen more production. It's still not where it was, but as long as we kind of continue on this path, well, pre-COVID, I would say, we'd be in a good spot. But it is heartbreaking to know, and to see all my film friends and all the people who are super talented film people just move to other states, move to Atlanta, move to LA, move to New York. It's frustrating to see when they've lived in Wilmington for 20 years, they built a career here. It's sad to see them go. But the bottom line is film is good for everybody. And if you talk to anybody who's worked around a feature film or a television show, it would tell you about the amount of money that just gets dumped into the community and how good that is. So,
yeah, it'd be nice to have a show like Outer Banks. We had a film in North Carolina.
Yeah, like a show about North Carolina being filmed in North Carolina.
Yeah.
That'd be neat. Yeah. So,
A perfect example, like back in the day with Dawson's Creek. I know the guys have Katie Holmes. They love Katie Holmes. So,
yeah.
Back in the day with Dawson's Creek was huge. And I know there was a One Tree Hill, a lot of movies, even way back in the 80s that were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, some of those way back that were really cool. So it'd be nice to have that back, and hopefully we can. Let's talk now about you, though, with I don't think we talked about the no quarter video, have we, Bubba? I don't think we have so far. Do you want to talk about that?
Last year, Curtis and you guys obviously reworked the no quarter video. Had Steve in on that as well, making it more lifelike. So that was really cool. What was it, out in Manio or somewhere that you shot that on an actual pirate ship? And that was very neat. And so, do you think this year is it going to be the same, or are you going to tweak that as well?
So I think right now the plan is to keep the no quarter video the same. There are some changes I want to make to it. But for right now, I think the plan is to keep it the same and just to kind of refresh that or kind of replay that every year for a little while. There are some changes we'll make this year, but after that, I think it will be kind of set for a little bit.
And did you say earlier, are you through with your filming for the entrance video, or did you say there's still some more filming to be done with that?
No, that's all the filming we're going to do for this year. To be honest, we're just kind of sitting waiting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks to see if we're going to be able to air it this year. The exciting thing for us is this is the first time we'll actually be able to use highlights. So there will be highlights. There'll be actual game footage included. The first year we did it, essentially it was that was coming off of Scotty Montgomery's second year. There wasn't really an opportunity to show highlights for various reasons. But it wasn't that there wasn't highlights. Obviously there were great moments, but I wanted to really focus on the story. I wanted to really just like give people my vision for what we wanted for the entrance video. Last year we couldn't do it because we'd be using highlights from Scotty Montgomery's last season. So now we've got we have Mike Houston highlights. We have the kind of the core base of what we have going forward. So I'm really excited. I'm actually going to be working with Brian Meador to implement the reimagining of the video with highlights, and I think that'll give it a lot more energy. We've got some special things coming with the music. I'm working with the team here in Wilmington to do some special things there. Can't talk too much about that, but these things are going to come together. I hope it's for the 2020 season and not the 2021 season.
What about the spring of 21 season? Would there be anything you would do different if we were playing football this spring?
I don't think so. I think, what we've done and kind of the plan we have for the next iteration, I think it'll play in this fall, spring, or next fall if needed. If we have more time, if it ends up being that there's no football till next fall, which would be super depressing.
Hush, Curtis. Hush. At least give us the spring.
Sorry. Okay. We'll say spring. If for some reason there's not football this spring, I think we'd probably keep with what we've got planned for right now. That'll just give us a little more time to kind of sink our teeth into it. So,
no doubt. As far as can you talk about how much time does it take? I know you guys work hours and hours. Can you give an idea? I don't think fans, I'm doing this on purpose, I don't think fans realize the amount of time you put into that video. All we do is we walk up there and we sit in our seats, and then obviously we see the entrance video, and anyway, that's so cool. And you put hours and hours and hours for what, a few minutes?
Oh yeah, I think
it's amazing.
The final's a minute and a half. Our first iteration, we spent I think 4 weeks nonstop, a team of about 5 people. So we have a great VFX person in-house, Mark Eaton, who was able to do the State of Mind on Fire. That wide shot is all cool. VFX. All the close-ups are practical. We were actually shot in Carolina Beach. But we had such an amazing team, and it was some of Wilmington's best. The people who work on those films, who work on the television shows. I put out the call and I just said, "This is what we want to do." So year one, I started at the top. I was like, I'm going to throw it out to the best filmmakers I know, and then I'll trickle down based on our time and budget and their availability. And luckily, everybody said yes, and I've hooked them, and they love doing it. So far, every year. Every call I've made, people have been completely on board. Going back to the no quarter video in Manio, that was a lot of fun to actually shoot on a ship at night with Steve and a couple of his pirate actors, the guys that are in his troupe, to see them, and just there's several moments. I've been doing this for 15 years, but there's several moments where you step back and you're like, I'm on a ship with pirate actors and we're making an ECU video. This is happiness. This is what I've meant. This is what I meant to do. This is, it's just, for years I talked about, someday I'll try to make the entrance video, or someday I'd like to make the entrance video, and you say things like that, but deep down you're like, but will I actually get that opportunity, or will the right person will the door open at the right time? And, thanks to just a relationship I had and meeting Brian Meador and him kicking the door down, we were able to get in. So I'm in. I'm just trying to hold on for a few years and just do as much pirate stuff as I can, because this is fun. And this is my respite. So
in addition to the entrance video, what other stuff are you working on right now? Can you tell us, or you have to kill us?
you mean, well, I mean, East Carolina, all it is the entrance video. Outside that, I mean, we do a variety of things. We do animation, we do video production. We actually just produced for a group in Austria who couldn't get to Charlotte for a shoot. So we went in and produced a shoot for them. But you know, there's such a variety of projects that we do. We do 2D and 3D animation, and then just any video production. Sometimes it's a film project, sometimes it's a television project, but most of the time we're doing corporate and commercial projects. So.
Guys, we got anything else for Curtis?
Yeah. What about certainly with everything going on with COVID? Does that change your game plan? I know you were talking about earlier with the smaller crews, but what else is the stuff that we're not even thinking about behind the scenes that you're having to deal with? Because I'm seeing like with different things like soap operas and a lot of movies in LA and different things that there's finally starting back like this week, and it's just it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through all the guidelines for California, for Georgia, for North Carolina. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of levels. It scales based on the size of crew, but it's kind of common sense stuff. Most of it boils down to, you know, and the thing with film industry is there's so many people on sets, there's so many people behind the camera, there's so much interaction, there's so many people in confined spaces. So it's really just, you know, trying to keep your distance, you know, not if it's unnecessary, not to be on set, staying away as much as possible, limiting your crews, bringing people in just as they're needed, and then just wiping down equipment, constant, like, you know, taking fever or taking temperatures, making sure that anybody who's not feeling right, making sure everybody's communicating, and anybody who has been exposed gets quarantined. Anybody. So, you know, we've done about 6 shoots at this point, just over the last few weeks. And so far they've all been 4 or 5 crew or smaller. So they've all been limited. They've all been small scale. But so we're not dealing with a lot of the big sets right now. And I don't know how they're going to deal with it. Obviously there's it's you know, anybody who tests positive is going to put the whole thing on halt. And they're just going to have to take a step back. So it's interesting to see it. But I don't know how these big productions are going to move forward all the way through the schedules that they do, you know, while maintaining the safety precautions, because they are pretty involved and they are pretty lengthy, and film sets are pretty hectic. So,
Curtis, last thing. Go ahead, Bubba.
Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
Well, okay. Well, last thing I got for you, then Bubba's got some. I just who are some of your favorite filmmakers, influences on you as a filmmaker that you kind of have patterned yourself after, or had an impact on you? And just also talk about the tie between sports and making films.
So, as far as filmmakers, you know, I grew up a big Spielberg fan. There's a lot of kind of nods to Spielberg in our first iteration of Enter the Pirate, from him standing up and putting on his pirate hat. You know, that's kind of a reflection of the Indiana Jones. There's several shots in the Indy. You know, I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright. He's a phenomenal filmmaker. You know, I really just kind of enjoy, you know, Akira Kurosawa and Quentin Tarantino. I mean, I kind of respect everybody on a certain level. Even like I remember when I was at East Carolina, Kevin Smith came and talked for 5 hours. I'm not a huge fan of Kevin Smith's movies, but I love him as a filmmaker. Like sitting and listening to him for 5 hours is amazing. So, but as far as my influences, I
like Clerks?
Sorry?
Clerks
like
was great.
No. I liked Clerks. I'm just not a huge Kevin Smith fan because all his characters have the same voice. You know, they're all Kevin Smith's voice, just told through different vessels. So, but as far as filmmakers, I mean, I know it's such a cop out, and now, you know, because Spielberg's had a couple bad movies that people hate him, but you know, it's like I grew up with Jurassic Park. I grew up with Indiana Jones. Those are the movies that, you know, when I approached the first iteration of the Pirates entrance, I wanted to have iconic moments. So when you step back, there would be these visuals that you just kind of held on to of the pirate turning and smiling, of the pirate putting on his hat, of the state of mind on fire, of the pirate kind of walking into the fire. There were just moments, you know, that's how I see when I watch Spielberg's movies. You kind of go away with those cool moments. Like, what are your favorite parts of you know, Raiders? Like, you could sit there and you name these really, you're naming scenes that are encompassed by a shot that have, you know, that he put everything into that visual. Jaws, same way. You know, it's like when he's chumming the water and he stands up, you're gonna need a bigger boat. It's like there are these moments. And I really, when we made that story, I was like, I want people to just have a couple visuals seared into their heads. And if you do that, I think people kind of forgive you for any miscomings. You know, but that's kind of what we try to do. We just wanted to have some big visuals. We wanted to just hit people with everything that we had. And I think Spielberg is the person I pulled from the most, is just because he's such a master of those moments that are so iconic and so memorable when you watch his films.
Did you like 8mm?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was different. It was different for Spielberg.
Yeah, it was. It was like. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
In fact, a lot of people don't know that you were talking about Jaws 45th anniversary, the very first really like summer blockbuster ever, where it was released thousands of screens across the nation. A lot of people don't know that. That's what started the whole summer blockbuster many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a phenomenal movie. I just saw the other day there's some lake that screens it over the water, and you sit on the inner tube and watch it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh my God.
I mean, even a lake that would mess with your head. I'd totally do it though. That'd be fun.
Bubba, you had a question for him?
Well, Johnny Gardner, one of our loyal listeners and viewers, does. And Johnny said, Curtis, how did you end up on the Port City scene? Did you go straight there, or did you start in California or Georgia and then seek your opportunity in the North Carolina market?
So no, we actually, I was at East Carolina with Jonathan Medford, my now business partner, and we were actually starting a full service ad agency called Inspire. So when we first got our start, it was 2005. We saw that Wilmington had such a robust film industry at that time. So we moved to Wilmington. There were 5 of us originally. And yeah, we came down here and kind of started up. At that, one of the first things we did, actually, that was when Skip Holtz had just started his golf tournament, and I put in calls to Henry Hinton and whatever people we knew at the time in the pirate community, because I was like, hey, we're starting this ad agency, we want to be involved. So we got up with Skip and actually did the advertising for his golf tournament. So we did the Drew Steele Skip Holtz golf tournament. We did the logo, we did their website, we did their videos. That was our company. It was called Inspire. And technically it still exists, but after the economy collapsed in 2008 and came back, Jonathan and I decided to kind of restructure. Telling stories on the video production side was a passion. So I just went, essentially we started 2 separate companies that we both kind of own and operate. So Port City Films is one of those companies. And, it was with Inspire, we were doing video production and we were telling stories, but it was only a portion of what we were doing. And I saw an opportunity to just jump in and do video production around the clock and be in my studio at 9 p.m. at night and just hang out with guys like you.
Yeah, exactly. I had a question for you selfishly. my oldest nephew wants to go into filmmaking. Honest to God, he really does, and he wants to go to the film school at I guess it's now the UNC School of the Arts.
Great.
Where do they get there? How does the guy? He's a rising senior in high school. Where do they get their start? So I guess there are people watching that may have that same question. I guess there's different paths to.
Yeah. Oh, sure. There's so many different paths. So there's a guy named Eli Wallace Johansson, very good friend of mine. He has actually been our DP, director of photography, for other people, as cinematographer of all the ECU videos that we've done, the pirate videos. He went to North Carolina Film of the Arts. Came out of there. I've been working with him about 12 years now, on and off. But that's a phenomenal school. There's not a lot of film programs I recommend because it's something you can learn just by getting a camera in your hands, being around the right people, and just going and doing it. But I do think, depending on what he might be interested in, I think North Carolina School of the Arts is a phenomenal place to go. There's a lot of other people. When people come here to Wilmington, we have UNCW and we have Cape Fear Community College. I actually direct a lot of people, depending on what they want to do, to Cape Fear, because Duke Fire is a friend of mine who runs that program, and he does a really good job of, in 2 years, gives you kind of a base, get stuff in your hands. He's no nonsense, and people are off and running, and people who come out of his program are really solid. So there's no real path. My brother, who is the director, who goes back and forth between North Carolina and LA, he went to UNC Asheville for 2 years and then dropped out and just bought a camera. So I will say this is, I've never known another producer or production company or filmmaker to look at a resume and see where you went to college, because this industry is what can you do? And the NC School of the Arts is probably, and I'm going to get chastised for this, I've not spent much time getting to know East Carolina's film program. I came through when it was communications, but that's the one I can recommend for sure, because I know people have gone through it. They do a phenomenal job. But again, depending on what you're doing, there are a lot of paths. I would say that you definitely don't have to go to college. If you do, make sure it's a good college with, more importantly, a good film community there. Make sure there are people there who will help you make your stuff on the side, and you can build relationships, because most of the people that go to those film schools come out, the kind of mantra that they always lean on is that they met the best filmmakers that they work with today in those places. So it's definitely a place, if you're in the middle of wherever, North Carolina or Iowa, and you just need to go somewhere and get into it, hey, that's great. I think there are a lot of great film schools out there, but I do think there are too many film schools that people just go in, spend their money, and they're not properly prepared to integrate within the community, and they come out and it doesn't, it's not going to get them a job. It's really, what can you do? And people will look at your reel, and they don't care about your grades. They don't care about where you went to school.
So David, tell Amy that Curtis said for your nephew to just grab a camera and take his ass to LA and make music.
Atlanta.
Sure, yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm sure that would go over really well. She'll kill me for suggesting it goes 3,000 miles away. Or, whatever.
Film of the Arts is, it's a good spot, and just make sure that when they get there, they dive in, help people make stuff, and get people to help you make your stuff. Work on the side, and that's what I wish I had. When I went through East Carolina, I didn't have. We had a few friends. There was a small group of us that wanted to do projects, but there wasn't a community. And I really wish when I was at East Carolina, there was a film community that I could really lean on. And I hope they have that now. I've heard there's a film school, and that's great. I'd love to see what they're doing. I don't know much about it. So.
We want to have you, if you don't mind, do you have a few minutes you can spend with us on a roundtable?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. As a fan, I know we had the filmmaker, and you're also a fan. When do you think? Do you have any kind of insight? What's your gut feeling as far as East Carolina football? Do you think we're going to play in the fall? Do you think we're going to be the spring? What is your gut feeling?
Man, I mean, right before we got on here, I read that there are 27 students that just got tested positive today, or
27 people. That could be staff, students.
Okay. 27 out of the 400 some tests. My gut tells me that we're not going to play this fall, and I hope I'm wrong, man. Even if it's 8 games, even if it's 2 games, I don't care. Like, I grew up on the Ohio State-Michigan border. I need college football in my life. But my gut tells me college football is not going to happen, but NFL will figure it out, and they'll have maybe games without fans or something. I think there will be football this fall, but I worry that there's not going to be college football.
Yeah, I'm with you, Curtis. I do feel pretty confident we'll play it in the spring. I don't think schools like East Carolina can afford to fund their athletic department with going a whole year without playing football. And then for schools that can't afford it, like Alabama, the amount of money they're going to lose, they just don't want to lose. I mean, you're talking about Alabama, they're looking to lose $80 to $100 million. So I do think that it probably won't happen this fall, unfortunately. I hope it does. I'm not going to give up until they say it ain't going to happen.
Yep.
But I do think it'll happen in the spring. It'll be interesting, Easter eggs in football. But I think we're going to have a weird sports year ahead of us.
Yeah, I agree.
Bubba, do you have a question for Kurtz?
I was just going to chime in with some stuff for the roundtable. That's what I saw today. The SEC postponed the start of volleyball, soccer, and cross country through August 31st, and they reiterated. I think this is Brett McMurphy, but it said that would not impact football. So it was funny. Folks were, of course, chiming in saying, of course, they're not going to do that to the sport that all the rednecks love.
And that's such an ignorant thing to say. If it wasn't for football, there would be no SEC volleyball or anything else. So it's such an ignorant thing to say when that provides the money for scholarships, for volleyball, et cetera. When people say stuff like that, they're talking out of their ass and don't know what they're talking about.
Something else I wanted to mention, I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to listen to the interview that was done with Patrick Johnson. He had Mike Houston on Monday afternoon. It was a very good interview, probably at least 20, 25 minutes. But one of the things that Coach Houston said that I found very interesting, Patrick asked him about the shape the players returned in. He said a third of them were in great shape, a third of them pretty average, and then a third were below par, and the majority of the ones that were below par were those younger guys.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I think that with Coach Houston, he's the one thing I like about him, he's old school. You could have Coach Houston in any decade in the 70s or 80s or 90s. I mean, he's just I love that about him, and the physicality, the no nonsense. I hate when I hear the term players coach because that lets me know they're soft. And I think that's what we had in a previous administration. So I'm glad that we have a guy that's not a player's coach.
Wait a minute, Dave. Coach Sweeney down at Clemson and Nick Saban are both known as players coaches.
Well, I don't know. All I know is I want to win, and with Mike Houston, we're going to win. And what we were doing, where we're allowing guys to wear earrings at practice, and not tackling and going, as Coach Smith would say, live. All I know is with the guy we have now, if you're not going to do what he wants you to do, you're not going to be in the program, and that's exactly the discipline as the head coach we needed. And we're going to win a lot of football games under Mike Houston. It's not a question of if. I think whenever we can play games is more important right now. And Houston is the real deal. I did on purpose, as Scotty Montgomery used to say, but he is the real deal. And you look at the recruiting, Curtis, I tell you what, you're going to be – I have a feeling you're going to be producing videos for championship games or different things in the future. If we could just ever play this 2020 season or 21, the next couple of years for Houston's when things are going to be very bright, finally.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'd love to be a part of highlights during an entrance video of trophy lifting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a great point. Great point. You will get that. You will get that opportunity.
Dave, talking about the football recruiting, though, our most recent commitment was from an offensive lineman. We're projected to take probably 4 offensive linemen in this class, even though it's a smaller class, since that's such a position of need. And then also we probably already have 3 out of the 4 wide receivers that we're going to take per Stephen Igo. But the most recent commitment, 6'6", 310 out of Georgia, Kanan Clark. And that's what he's the 4th commitment in the month of July. And take a look and listen to this, guys. 2 from the state of Virginia, 2 from Georgia, and 2 from South Carolina, 1 from Maryland, and 1 from Alabama. Not a single commit yet from the state of North Carolina. I just found that interesting. I'm not saying we're not getting tremendous football players, but I just found that very interesting. So it'll be interesting to see out of 15 or so in this class how many end up being from the state.
Yeah, last year was a very weak year overall in North Carolina for high school football. Bubba, do what? The last signing class,
right?
Bubba, you followed high school football more than the rest of us. Obviously, you coached high school ball. How is high school football in the state projected to be for this upcoming year? Is it a strong class?
I've heard Stephen Igo say it is. Yeah. So
when Igo's
this is one of the strongest classes that Stephen Igo can recall. Maybe the strongest, I think he said, since he started doing this 10, however many years ago.
Interesting that we're not having much success early in state. Hopefully that'll change. I'm sure it will. But that is interesting.
Yeah, I think the good news is that we got to have a nice balance. I think you have to have a nice balance where you have we got 20, 25 guys we have to sign or like to sign, and so it's a good. So far it's a good balance of stuff out of state, and there's enough players I think in the state of North Carolina. My question would be, how many good players can we get in Eastern North Carolina? Over the last couple of years, I think we've done a good job of that, and then branched out, and maybe that's still going to happen. And then we already have those guys from out of state that we needed or wanted. Who knows?
Yeah, you would hope. I mean, if the majority of your recruiting is going to be done in state, no matter what, and then of course we'll hit the Virginia, Maryland, and South Carolina quite a bit. But we've had a lot of luck in South Carolina since Houston's been here. But yeah, I do find it like Bubba said, it is interesting. Not one commitment from North Carolina yet.
Well, I think that Curtis, as far as the football program is concerned, do you follow the recruiting at all? I know you've got a lot on your plate with filmmaking, but do you follow the recruiting or more of the inside baseball things for the football program?
Yeah, I do. I subscribe to the Hoist the Colors site, and I usually start my morning with some news headlines, and then I go over to ECU just to kind of see what the new thing is. So I probably spend a little bit too much time on Hoist the Colors, but I also try not to get too involved in the boards.
Do you know Igo?
Yeah. No, I've not met him personally.
Okay, well, I got a suggestion for you when you meet him. Okay, when you meet him, remember I said this. If you remember the old Masters of the Universe cartoon, he looks like a skinny He-Man. He looks like a skinny He-Man. You should do something with him. He-Man, I'm telling you.
I've seen him because I'll watch the pirate radio shows and stuff. So I've definitely seen him in the virtual world, but I've not met him face to face. So. I think Hoist Colors just started following Port City Films on some platform in the last day or two, though. So that's a step closer.
Yeah, when you get a chance to ask him about that, if he can be in a video or something and be Masters of the Universe, he can be He-Man theory.
Yeah, maybe that'll be our final video as it ends with Igo raising the sword and the light.
We have the power.
That would be extra cool.
We can totally do that with our VFX.
Okay. Bubba, you're going to ask.
Curtis, the final question I had for you, we've talked about this on multiple shows, but as an East Carolina alum and an avid follower of East Carolina athletics. And it was made known recently that. Sorry, I'm trying to fend off my 5-year-old here. That's not distracting. Not distracting whatsoever.
Yeah, give him a treat. What was the?
Just throw it up.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah, where's Nicole Auerbach to show me how it's done when I need it? But no, as far as the Pirate Club's concerned, it was announced recently. Obviously, falling well short of where we need to be. Need to be around $8.5 million, only a little less than $5 million a year ago. So, just what are your thoughts there? And just people you come into contact with, and just try to spread, get people to do what they need to do, and as they can for East Carolina athletics.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and there's a lot of layers to that. I think the first thing I'd do is call Vince McMahon and just see what's up, man. This is a drop in the bucket for
Absolutely.
you. But no, I mean, before COVID started, it's winning, and or having a product that you're proud of, and I think Coach Houston is gonna put that on the field. It's a tough time, luckily we've stayed pretty busy through this pandemic. I know a lot of people that haven't. I know I don't know how you ask for more money from certain people. You just got to hope that we that it doesn't get worse than where we are today, and that we can head in the right direction, and hopefully business keeps rolling, because as bad as some things are, it could be much worse. It could be there are still things moving, and I feel like if we can just head in the right direction, then people will be able to donate more, and people will be able to bring more people out. But it's unfortunate, because we were just on the cusp of this kind of resurgence of Pirate football, or so it felt, that like, oh man, we're right there. Last year there were so many games, we were so close with SMU and Cincinnati, and then and now this is happening. The talent, I think, is there. I think the swagger's coming back. I think all the pieces are there. We just got to get on the field, and that's why I really hope we can find a way to play this fall, even if it's a smaller season. I hope that we can figure out a way to get on the field and play. I don't care if we can't step foot in Dottie Ficklin. I just hope the players can play, and we can take steps in the right direction. But I think that will work its way out. But there's definitely some obstacles, and Vince McMahon will be the short answer.
Well, pal, I don't know how much interest Vince and Linda have in East Carolina, to be honest with you. I heard Linda.
Oh, I'm with you.
When she came to give her commencement speech, was it 2 years ago? Last year, whenever it was, I heard she wanted to get in and out as fast as she could. I wish they would give. Be nice. Obviously, Vince is. If he's not our richest alum, he I don't know who is.
Right.
So it'd be nice. Hell, we could call it WWE Stadium. Would be fine with me. Whatever he needs.
Right. Yeah. SmackDown Stadium. Whatever.
Yeah. We'll give him SmackDown.
Yeah. What for me personally, I think there's a lot of things that have happened behind the scenes. There's been a lot of people that we've trusted, unfortunately, and we won't mention their names. And then with bad ADs, bad coaching hires, there's a whole bunch. Then we have COVID. There's all kinds of craziness that's happened. And I think that there's, Kyle has said it before, I think there's a lot of people, Curtis, that they're still on a wait and see program, wait and see for the program, because they're like, we've been, so it's a matter of trust and communication.
Sure.
And I think the trust is not there still. I think the pieces are in place as far as administration. I think with the coaching hires and all that, until, like you said, the winning comes, and then I think after the winning comes, maybe eventually that what did you call it? I think Kyle called it the most stink.
Yeah.
That there's like the most stink, and people still haven't taken that shower, or maybe they've taken the shower, it's still not quite off of them yet.
Well, it's not just the most think; it's the comfort ass that's also on us.
Yeah, that lingers.
Yeah, so we got to get that off of us, and I think there's a lot of people, and I don't want to get down a rabbit hole here and get too into the weeds of East Carolina behind the scenes. Really, there's a lot of people at East Carolina that have been in positions of power behind the scenes a little too long, and they've forgotten what East Carolina is supposed to be about, and let their political agenda kind of run things too much. And I think it's time for some of those people to take a little big step away from East Carolina.
Well, and the fact that there's a lot of us that are middle aged, this our time to lead. We were very young. Being at East Carolina, it was not our time to lead. And I think there's a lot of us in our 40s now, 30s and 40s, that this is our prime. This is our time to shine. This is I think there are people that forgot the word legacy and what that means. And, I would hate to say that when I'm older, looking back, that my legacy is what's happened in the last 7 years. I hope that's not my legacy. And I'm going to do everything I can. I've been giving more money every year, doing the opposite, because I don't want more sports dropped and a whole bunch of crazy stuff that's happened that I would have never thought in a million years. This whole thing with COVID, everything that's happened to our program over the last 7 years has been outrageous. So maybe you can make a movie about it, Curtis. Anyway, but hopefully I think that we're headed in the right direction. I really do. And certainly we could talk hours about it. Before we let you go, Curtis, how can people find your work if there's other stuff, or maybe there are people that want you to make a documentary or they want to get in touch with you? How can they do it?
Yeah, I mean, Port City Films, we're on most of the big platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then portcityfilms.com. We, like I said, we do film and television projects, but we also do a lot of commercial and corporate videos all around the country, sometimes internationally. But yeah, we definitely want to get more into that feature film world. So if anybody's got those ideas, and a little bit of cash to back it up, we're your team.
Yeah, the guy right here, Kyle, he and I both love pro wrestling. So maybe you can make a pro wrestling film. We're your guys. We can help you out on that.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know about the cash part. But we can definitely.
So are you guys the talent for the project?
Oh my God!
Kyle can do it.
Maybe several years ago, when my knees were bad, and I don't know what Dave has in mind. We both love old school '80s wrestling. It would be a cool idea for a movie to do a retro wrestling movie that was based like in the old territories when you had 20 different territories throughout America, and you had the Crockett promotions, you had the old Memphis territory and the Portland territory, and to make a movie about those days would be a cool idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think one day the Coen brothers make a movie about 2020.
Oh my God, that would be awesome.
It'll be a horror movie.
It'll be
One of my favorite movies in recent years is Mickey Rourke when he did The Wrestler.
Yeah,
that movie was incredible. Yeah, no doubt. Well, Curtis, thanks, man. Appreciate you so much. And hopefully we can definitely have you back on in a few months, I guess, whenever we finally know about the entrance video and have you talk about it, and certainly talk about sports and not about COVID-19 and the delay and when we're going to have things and when we're not going to have things. But it's always a pleasure. I'm a huge fan of your work, huge fan of you. And I'm glad that you went to East Carolina, and I'm glad you're down in Wilmington, and hopefully we can keep you down there too. That would be awesome to keep you in Wilmington and not in Georgia or Louisiana or New York or LA.
Well, I'm here to stay. I appreciate you guys having me on again. Good seeing you guys virtually.
Exactly.
And yeah, looking forward to the next one. But we're here for a couple years anyway.
All right. Take care, man. Hope you have a great night. Appreciate the time, brother.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. Curtis Thieman there, Port City Films. Great to have him on, and a lot of fun guys. Before we wrap this thing up, Kyle, you're awesome. What do you think? That would be a great idea for a movie. I have to give you credit. That was.
I'm surprised it hasn't been done. Honestly, it's obvious that you could do it. You could do a nonfiction film looking back at the different territories, or you could do fictional. You could have to take somebody that never existed, but kind of base him on somebody, a singles wrestler working his way up from Continental on through, Memphis to the Crockett promotions at the Carolinas to all, on up to WWF.
That would be really cool. And Bubba, do you know what we're talking about?
No clue.
We love you for your honesty. But yeah, certainly that'll be cool. And I tell you who we could.
I know
tell you
when
who would
my
help
mouth
us out.
shut.
I tell you that Jim Cornette would help us out. I'm sure that he would help us out with the project because he's tremendous. And for those of you who don't know that is, look him up. I'm sure that a lot of people. And we need Pirate Al. Pirate Al would help us out too. Pirate Al would. He's a huge wrestling fan.
I think we're going to need a budget first of all, Dave. But
yeah, exactly. We can do a GoFundMe thing, right? Project. All right, guys. Do you have anything before we go?
No, that's it. Just I don't know if looking forward is the right word, but anxious to see what's going to happen with all this. How soon we'll get back out on the practice field. I think Bubba said it was 7 days for Ohio State. It'll be interesting to see if similar for us, if it's a 7-day pause. And I don't know, man. Just weird time.
It really is. And, I enjoy you guys very much, but I'm hoping at some point that we can review games, the Pirate playback, preview and playback, and same thing with basketball and, of course, baseball. And that'll be great when we can talk sports again.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Bubba, do you have anything before we go?
Yeah, and Kim McNeil, who we'll have on next week, obviously East Carolina's women's basketball coach. She made an addition to her staff today. Brittany Morris, who had spent the last 3 years at UNC Wilmington, 2 of those as recruiting coordinator, in addition to her on the floor coaching responsibilities, has joined her staff. So we'll have to talk about that as well as many other things with Coach Kim McNeil next week. So look forward to that, and then also all the football player interviews with 50 Pirates in 50 days.
No doubt. By the way, folks, want to remind you that we'll be talking to a guy that most people know in college football, Phil Steele. We'll be talking to him on Friday morning, and we'll put that podcast out by the weekend for sure, maybe sometime Friday, but we'll definitely have that out. Looking forward to that. He's amazing, and we'll be talking about COVID-19, what it means for his publication. I think Bubba and Kyle fight over who's the first to get that publication, but that's been pushed back. We'll talk to him about that, about college football. The future, is it bright as far as we're going to be playing? We're not going to be playing. I'm sure he'll have some insight on that. That'll be Friday morning that we record that, and then have the podcast out for the weekend for sure.
So,
yeah, as far as getting Phil Steele, Kyle, I think, did you pre-order yours?
I did not. I was going to, but then I heard that they would be available on the shelves at Barnes & Noble. So I decided I'll just wait.
Maybe?
I just heard Barnes & Noble. I just heard Barnes & Noble, Bubba. Do you have knowledge that Books A Million is also going to carry it?
Yeah, I listened to an interview with Phil Steele on the Indy Staples show. So I definitely recommend the Indy Staples show for all college football fans. But Phil said, yeah, in addition to Barnes & Noble, I'm pretty sure it was Books A Million. So you basically had 4 options. You could either have pre-ordered it, you could buy it online, or get the ebook, so to speak, where you can read it on your device, or Barnes & Noble, and I believe that 4th option was Books A Million.
All right. Sounds good. So we look forward to that. A lot of 50-50 as far as 50 Pirates in 50 days. Check those out. We have those, of course, they're right here, Facebook, or they're archived on our YouTube channel. And then we also have them on Spotify and Anchor as well. So you can look for them there as a podcast. All right, guys. Appreciate Nicole Auerbach, and, of course, from The Athletic. And we just had, of course, you saw Curtis Thieman from Port City Films. You've been listening or watching The Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.